Hello, we are open once again, and today we discuss the brave men and women bringing us coverage from the Gaza-Israel conflict. We also talk about what camera manufacturers can do better for their customers, and what computer should we get? Should it be a Mac, PC, desktop, laptop? We talk all of this with our good friend Peter Morgan.
Hey Mark, how you doing?
I'm all right, Cam. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, very good. I am not busy with shoots at the moment. I've got a lot of office stuff going on. I think I mentioned and all the office stuff I've got going on, a lot of it's to do with it in preparation for a very busy period that we've got coming up, as you know, that we'll both be involved in. And I think I mentioned recently that we're going paperless as a business.
Yeah.
So we're also doing an office refurb. So I want to try and get that done by the end of the year. We're getting a decorator in and some new furniture, something very simple, minimalistic. So trying to keep costs down.
Yeah. As we all have to do.
All with a view to sort of going paperless.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I've got a bit of editing to do. It stacked up quite quickly. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing a lot. But yeah, shooting all the time. So yeah, busy. Doesn't seem to let up. But yeah, it's good. It's good to be busy.
That's what I want to hear. Busy photographers. Should we grab a drink?
Yeah, let's grab a drink.
Okay, let's go. Oh, actually, hang on, Mark. I forgot the socials. I need to do the socials. Yeah.
Oh, blimey, yeah, we need to do that.
Okay, right, guys. If you enjoy listening to the show, please continue to support us. Please leave 5-star reviews on all the usual podcast outlets. Please support us. Follow us on YouTube, on Patreon. That would be really good. And remember, Patreon, the show comes out a week early, so you can listen to us a week early. You'll be able to do that. And just please review us. Please keep liking us. And with that, Mark, now let's grab a drink.
Let's grab that drink.
Right, Mark. Okay, so that was an early drink, wasn't it? In the show, we don't normally do it that early.
Well, we normally have them prepared, don't we? Before
we do. Yeah.
We're a bit lax on that. So let's a few sort of very casual, sort of flippant remarks there, but let's go straight into what we want to talk about first of all. Bit of a contentious one. So obviously we've all seen the pictures and heard the news of what's going on in the Middle East at the moment, particularly in the Gaza Strip and Israel. Basically, we don't want to talk about the politics of it. That's not what we're about here. Obviously, it's a very sort of emotional subject for many people. But I think the thing that really kind of opened our eyes again. I think we spoke about this with the Ukraine conflict as well, which is still going on, of course. Is the photojournalists, the news reporters, or the other journalists, videographers, photographers that are going out there or who are already out there. A lot of these journalists are Israeli or Palestinian, I guess. They're out there and they're putting their lives on the line, so we get the information that we want. And just to, I was just a quick Google search, we'll find, one of the top stories, BBC journalists covering an attack on Israel were assaulted and held at gunpoint after they were stopped by police in the Israel city of Tel Aviv. It's what we do is important as wedding photographers, family photographers. It is important, obviously, because it's capturing memories and all those things. But I don't know. This is something else. This is putting your life on the line for your job, and it's a different thing, isn't it?
It is, and where we are and the distance that we're away from it, we are removed from it.
Oh, so absolutely.
So it's very difficult to understand what's really going on out there. I mean, the news coverage is so intense, and I find that, but I'm watching a lot of it. So just for example, when I'm sitting in front of the TV, if I'm at home in the evenings or the weekend, I'm finding in between something I'm watching, I'm going to the news stories, I'm flicking, I'm going from BBC to Sky to Al Jazeera to CNN to other worldwide networks, and just seeing what's being actually reported. And I was in Jordan for a couple of weeks earlier this year on a holiday, and we drove we spent a whole day traveling, and to our left, on the other side of really what was a big lake, I guess, was Israel. And we drove for hours. It's probably 4 hours, and having Israel on the left. And I remember sitting on in the vehicle that we were on, and just basically keeping my eyes open and just watching the landscape, because I just loved doing that. The other, the people that I went with sort of dropped off, and I was sort of keeping my eyes open, thinking, I may never come back here again, and thinking, wow, that's Israel there. It's unbelievable. And now, having been there and having been to that part of the world and thinking about it, it's even more sort of shocking, because Jordan remains a neutral country within all of this, but it's so close to them, and I can imagine what sort of the feeling of people and the worry that's going on out there.
Yeah.
So it's really easy. So what we do is we rely on the news stories to give us some idea of what's going on, and we don't have any idea of really what it's like there. So the credit that we have to give these journalists that we very, very easily take for granted, and the equipment, it's bad enough, when we're shooting, Mark, all day, and and we have to go back to the car and go and get another tripod or another light stand.
And we're also talking about things like backing up and
that's right.
Oh, what if we lose this wedding and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah. And you think, do I really, it's like, okay, I've got to walk the other side of that field. We've been doing a shoot, and I've got to walk across because I've got to go and get a couple of light stands, and I really don't want to do it. Do you know what? I've been here, for 9 hours, or it's been chucking it down with rain all day. We've got all our, because we're on a construction site, and we've got all this gear on and everything. Do you know what? I cannot be bothered to walk back to the car. I'll hold the bloody light instead of going back to go and get the light stand. Right? It puts those things into perspective, doesn't it? Because you imagine,
it certainly does.
Right, carrying their gear wherever they go, and the gear they're going to be carrying is pretty hefty gear. Tripod stands and everything, and all of that. And I know a lot of gear is now mobile, and they can record stuff on phones and content and all of that. But even still.
But also there's the other bits of equipment that we don't have to think about, helmets, body armor of some description, bulletproof vests, all that kind of thing. And, you are putting your life on your line, as I just mentioned, those journalists working for the BBC, they were held at gunpoint during this. I think that's happened a lot. I think many people, obviously loads of people have lost their lives, which is obviously horrible, but obviously we're talking about photojournalism here, really. They've gone out there to obviously record, let people know what's going on, and they've lost their lives because of it. And not only that, the horrors that these people must witness. I mean, how you can, and I know we always say, how do you sleep at night when someone's being bad or something, but this is a different thing. And how can you imagine going to sleep, trying to get to sleep after seeing all of that, and then you're hearing maybe what's going on outside.
No, they talk about soldiers from suffering from PTSD. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, or I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly. But what about these guys, as journalists? They must also have that as well, because because at the end of the day, they're there reporting, but they can't really help anyone. Well, in a way they are, because they're getting the message out there, aren't they? I suppose they're trying to do their bit. But, it's got to be, soul destroying, because they do their bit, but they know that at some point they'll be leaving and going back. Hopefully, they stay safe, that they're going to be going back to their own safe home and having somewhere to. So they know that if they're going to be there for a couple of days, or they could be there for 3 months, or they could be, I don't know how it works. They know that they're safe at the end of the day, or they're as safe as they can be. They know that they're moving forward, don't they? And to leave those people in that situation, you go back, that's got to be hard for people to deal with mentally as well. That's got to have an effect.
Well, like I said, with the Ukraine conflict, which is obviously still going on, and we've, as usual, the West has probably maybe forgotten about this, and we're talking about Israel at the moment. But there's still journalists out there doing their thing, and I remember watching it when it was all starting, and you had BBC journalists standing on this rooftop in Kyiv somewhere, and you could hear the explosions in the background and the sirens and all this. You're thinking, my word, they're choosing to go into these situations to give this message to people about unearthing the truth. I mean, yes, there are probably arguments about propaganda and all that kind of stuff, but I'm leaving that to a side. you know, these people are trying to get the message out, telling us what's going on, literally putting their lives on the line, seeing these horrors. It's just, as I said right at the beginning of this segment, it's on another level. You know, we do sacrifice a lot what we do. I mean, we sacrifice our weekends, we sacrifice quite a bit of our social life to do what we want to do. But this is taking it just to another level.
Oh God, it's beyond that. That's right. Yeah. And before anyone sort of thinks that when the journalists do their reports, well, I don't want anyone to think, oh yes, but what they're reporting is never accurate. That's not about this. We're not talking about journalists and news stations who have an agenda, okay, and they're saying, you know, that the story and what they're reporting is always one-sided. It's all misguided. We're not talking about that. No. We're just talking about these people being there in that situation, reporting in whatever direction that whatever type of message that they want to send out. We're not talking about that. We're talking specifically about them putting their lives on the line and being in that situation and reporting, you know, and seeing the horrors of what they have to deal with, and to record those horrors as well. Because do you know what? It's got to be very difficult, because there you are seeing something get bombed and you're filming that. Yeah. Okay. That's got to be hard to even accept the fact that you're doing that. And there's people that are looking on who are being bombed, thinking they're just watching us get bombed. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Yeah, you know, it's you know, and that's got to be difficult to deal with, because that's their job. And the thing is the world needs all of that. Otherwise we would never know. We would never know. But they have to be pretty hardline to say, actually, hang on a minute, where do I film and where do I get involved?
Well, that was always a thing. I mean, that famous picture of the boy with the hand grenade.
Yes.
Was it a boy? And it might have been a little girl, actually.
In Vietnam, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. And I think that person was saved by the photographer in the end. And yeah, I mean, I can't remember. It was a long time ago when I saw it. I think it might have been Don McCullen or someone like that. It says there is a time just to put the bloody camera down and do something. And it's knowing when to make that call.
It's knowing when to make that call, right? Because here's the thing: do you then say, "I've got to get this shot"?
Yeah,
I've got to get.
That's what you're there to do,
right? And then do you go? And then do you go into that mindset of I've got to just get the shot regardless of what's going on? I don't know. You know what? It'd be really good to get somebody on, and we'll try and do that. Yeah, we'll try and get a guest on
talking about the emotion.
Tell us about this. Yeah,
absolutely, because the emotional toll as well. So we spoke about the horrors these people must see, but also, you know, a lot of people, if you're spending some time following an army unit or a family who are in these, you know, how many of these like mini documentaries you see which are on Newsnight or what on ITV News or something like that, and you see, you know, they're talking about, say, a family and what they're going through, and then at the end of it they have to then say, and unfortunately such and such lost their life. So, you know, that journalist is probably one of the last people that person spoke to before they died, and to have that it's such a responsibility for a photojournalist or a journalist. I mean, you know, people who are out there, it's such a responsibility to be that last person, and then to think about that afterwards. You know,
I'd love to know the whole process of, you know, when they're there in the middle of everything that's going on and they're shooting and transferring images back and that whole thing about how does that work, and what's the pressure that they're under from their broadcasters as well, because they want to be the first ones that report as well. They want to get their images out first. They want to get their images out before anyone else, and you know, and all of that would be really interesting to find out is what pressure are they actually under to also deliver as well. You know. Because, you know, will a broadcaster say to them, well, look, you're there to do a job, so can you just get on with it and send your pictures and your images and your footage a little bit quicker, please? It's far too slow. You need to go and find out. You need to go and find something. You need to be there. You need to get involved. That all sounds really harsh, but that you know, that goes on, doesn't it? It must do.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you know, we said when we done a wedding, and you know, a guest has gone to, oh, you're having a good time, and it kind of like, well. Actually, it's a fantastic wedding, and you've done it really well. But I'm working. You know that this I'm having a better time than would be if I was working in an office somewhere, because this is what I've chosen to do. But Having a good time. I'm busy trying to get the shots, and I'm stressing to making sure I got the shots. And yeah, that's and I guess there's an element, I mean, to again a completely different level, but I guess there's an element of that when it comes to this sort of stuff. You know, you do have to, I'm here to do this. This is what I got, and you kind of somehow got to emotionally remove yourself from it. But again, because it's such a different level, how do people do it? It's incredible, and the danger they put themselves in. So yeah, I doff my caps to all the men and women who are.
So stay safe, guys, and
definitely stay safe.
Yeah, great stuff. Mark, should we grab a quick drink?
Yes, I think I need one after that.
Yeah. Right, Mark. Okay, so cameras. You're a Canon. Yeah, you're a Canon man.
I am a Canon man, and so are you. I just love
hang on.
that.
Canon, I'm Canon, Nikon, and Sony as well. I'm all three. Sony for video.
If you shoot a wedding tomorrow, what are you going to use?
Okay, Canon. In fact, whatever I'm going to shoot, I'm going to use my Canon. That's my priority. Okay, Nikon's there as backup, and then Sony is the go-to for video. Yeah. Okay. And I don't have a Leica, as you know. I have an affinity for Leica.
You want one?
That's right. Yeah. They're Kevlar made. Right, the James Bond one, the Lenny Kravitz model.
Lenny Kravitz model.
They've got them all, haven't they?
If this podcast ever becomes like world famous, then they need to do the Kamasi model, don't they?
They do. They do. That's right. Yeah, they do. Definitely. Yeah. Now, okay, Mark. So, camera manufacturers, we know that these days that when we go and buy a camera, whatever make it is, there are, they're almost mini computers now, aren't they?
They are.
Cameras.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, like with any computer, they have firmware updates, and when you are a Windows user, it's very frustrating because your Windows, your laptops and your PCs get slowed down because of all these updates that are going on. Yes, we know, Mark. Before you say anything, you don't have that problem if you're a Mac user, and all of that. Okay, but firmware updates,
you do over
not noticeable
a period of time, of course you do, but that's the cool thing about Macs, because they last about 10 years rather than laptops so.
Right. Okay.
Anyway,
now that's a conversation with Peter now. So, and like most things now, we're getting used to this, aren't we? It requires a software update. Turn it off, reboot it. It requires that. Okay. Now cameras they require firmware updates, and
they do.
I can guarantee you that most people that are listening to this podcast now have never actually done a firmware update. Yeah. So if you are listening now, have you done a firmware update on your camera? And I can almost guarantee that most of you are shaking heads thinking, no, I don't know. I haven't done it. I don't know.
I'm not going to lie. It's been a while since I've done one. I need to do it. It's not like I haven't done it. It's just, you have priorities, don't you?
Yeah. So I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do. I don't know when to do it. And should I do it? And is it reliable? Am I going to mess my camera up? All of those things. Okay. But camera manufacturers do firmware updates, and where they will fix little bugs, or make all these little bugs and fixes and everything that goes on. Now, I what it was is I came across something recently where a photographer was talking about different cameras, and he was saying what was wrong with not what was wrong with the brands, but other things that they could be doing that they could be doing better. Yeah. And one of those things that really struck me was or what caught my eye was he was talking that Sony are a little bit slow on their updates. Now that's not first-hand knowledge. I'm going by something that I've seen online and something
you've read, an article.
Yeah, okay, and I had a look, and then something did strike me, because when I listened to this article online, it said that the Sony Sony A7 III hasn't had any updates for quite a while. Now, I might be wrong there, because we do up. I have somebody else that does them here in the office, the firmware updates, and I don't think he's actually done any for a while because he's not mentioned it. And at least if he has done update firmware, because I do ask every now and again, there's been nothing that's been particularly useful or groundbreaking that's made us think, oh, this firmware update. Because a lot of these firmware updates, they can help with things like focusing, speeding up your camera. There might be something new, let's say model let's say you've got Model 3 of the camera, Model 5 has just come out.
Mm.
There might be certain things in Model 5 that are software related that don't exist on your camera, but you can have them on your camera if you do the firmware update.
Yeah.
Okay, so your camera should work. It should work better. But apparently Sony are very, very slow in doing this. They've not been doing it, and they're not as hot as Canon or Nikon. And apparently Nikon are really hot on it. The Z9 apparently has had 3 recent firmware updates. So I know all the Nikon S9, Z9 users out there are probably thinking, have they? Have they had 3? And apparently, I don't know what they are, but they've all apparently been very, very useful updates, firmware updates.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm going to be a little cynical, just for a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So if in some respects, you kind of think, well, these firmware updates should have been already on the camera. I mean, the Z9 hasn't been out that long. Has it? I don't think.
No, but remember,
it's been up. And I don't know if you have lots of people. Oh, we should have done that. Okay, update. I don't know. Am I being a bit cynical there? I don't know.
Yeah, because when you bought a new MacBook, didn't you, recently?
I did.
When you bought that MacBook, when you turned it on, did it go into a software update?
It did.
Okay, there you go. Right, because out of the box, they're always making changes, always new things that are going on.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, phones are the same, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. You buy a phone and you've got to wait for that software update, and every now and again it has a software update. Okay, so it's exactly the same with cameras. So really, the reason why I wanted to bring this up was, all of the camera brand manufacturers, are there things that they're doing that they could be doing better, or are there things that we're not happy with? What else is, from our experience and from this article that I'd seen online. So that was the thing about Sony. But what he then talks about is Nikon, and I actually agree with this. And I didn't think I was that aware of it, but I am actually. And maybe it's because of where I am in the profession, but whenever I see Nikon doing any ads or anything, their ads that go out are primarily geared towards the high-end models, the pro-end models. Z6, Z7, Z9. It's all Z9 at the moment. That's what I keep on seeing. And they do these other cameras, the APS-C models, all of those models that they do the point and shoot cameras. They do all of those. But the thing is they don't seem to, I don't see those being pushed so much as as how much they're pushing their high-end models for. And I get that. I understand that. They want to push they've got their market and everything. But there are a lot of people that can't afford those. They've got no need to go and buy a Z9, a Z6, a Z7. They want to go and buy not the Z50, whatever it is. Okay, right. They don't want to spend anywhere near as much. They want to spend. They might want to spend £1,000 on a camera, £800 on a camera, and that type of thing.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay,
no, I get that.
And so that's one of the things that I see, and I think camera manufacturers, whether it's Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever, I think there should be a push, because whenever anyone asks me, oh, what camera should I buy? The answer to that question is, how much do you want to spend? But if a hobbyist or an amateur will ask, they don't want to spend more than £1,000. Very rarely, the most common thing, I don't know, £300, £400, £500, £600. I've got no idea. I've got very little idea of what exists at that
range.
At that range. But the thing is I think I should be more aware. But I see that all the camera manufacturers just don't seem to push their advertising to the mass market. I think I think you're left more or less to your own devices to find out. So when we get to Canon, I remember there's one thing. So Nikon. So that's one of the things I would notice about Nikon. We've always said that when it comes to Nikon and Canon, I think quality wise, great. If you're a Nikon user, brilliant. If you're a Sony user and you Canon user, if you're invested in one of those brands, there's no need to change if you're happy with what you've actually got. I think Canon, we've always said it, I think lead the way. They do in sales, and I think they do lead. I think they do lead the way. I think Nikon got left behind for many, many years. I think their Z range has really up. They've really upped their game with the Z range, and so fair play to them. But one thing I think that Canon, and we spoke about this, didn't we, on a few episodes ago, and people are going to look back at the show, but Canon aren't doing third-party lenses for their
the RF
mirrorless range, for the RF,
for the RF, At the moment, I mean, Canon. Just to clarify what we were discussing, I mean, Canon were saying at the time that yes, they're in talks with all these sorts of people about offering the licenses and stuff like that. But I think they've been incredibly selective as to who it is. And at the moment, you have to have the mounts. I mean, you can buy an EF, say Tokina lens, but you have to have the mount to then fit it on the R6 or whatever.
Yeah. So, and I think that's, as you said, it will probably change. But do you not think that's a bold move from them to even say that? You know, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, one of the reasons why, I mean, actually, my first digital SLR was a Nikon, and one of the reasons why I liked that was because I had an f4 before, the old film camera, and the lenses would work on the D100 as they would with the f4.
Yeah,
and that's the reason why I went to that. But as everyone knows, I changed to Canon, and I think Canon had different mounts, a lot more different mounts than at the time. I think they had. Yeah, they had a few. I think their manual ones were different. You know, their old AE lenses were different to their EOS ranges. You couldn't mount, and I think they changed again. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly, but there was definitely a mount change between the newer cameras. I can't remember if that was film and digital, but there was definitely a mount change. But with the RF lenses, I kind of get it, because I think they're probably the best lenses, especially with focus and the way they are at the moment. I've not felt another lens focus like your 2470.
Yeah,
it's so smooth, it's so silent, it's so quick. You don't really think it's doing anything. It's that quick, which is incredible. And I can understand why they're kind of keeping that under wraps a little bit, I guess. And the way they do that is with the mount. It will change. Give it a few years, and of course they will. But I think they're just keeping it to themselves at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think, and moving on sort of from that as well, I think, you know, when we talk about what do camera brands need to do, what can they improve, that type of thing. One thing that I don't notice so much, because I've got lots of spares, but batteries, you know, mirrorless, do drain batteries far quicker than DSLR, but that's obviously there for a reason. But it is also depends on how you use that camera as well. You know, there is a temptation to look back at a lot of your images and that type of thing all the time. And
well, you're using a digital viewfinder, which is automatically going to take more battery power than a DSLR with the mirrorless. Although Canon do claim that the R6 Mark II is a lot better with battery life than my version, which is just the Mark One. I haven't seen it. I haven't tested that, so I don't know how much difference. But yeah, I know I'd probably go through 2 batteries to a DSLR 1 battery. Yeah, if I'm shooting on the same day.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like anything else. It's going to change. You know, if you look at phones and phone batteries, how they last that much longer. You buy a new laptop, and one of the big things about it is, you know, the battery life is so much better than it was, you know, than it has ever been before. It's the phone with the best battery life now.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's another thing. And overheating with cameras has been an issue, and I think it will continue to be an issue. You know, because obviously mirrorless cameras are the body's so much smaller. They don't, you know, they haven't got, a lot of them don't have the room to have a built-in fan, and if they do, that the image, the body gets bigger. I mean, you know, I know it's been out for a while, but we only discovered it recently, didn't we, at the Wales photography show? The
Cine R5.
The Cine R5, which has got a slightly bulkier body, but it's got a fan built in, which is absolutely brilliant. But that's their way of cameras overheating. I remember when I was shooting a wedding, it was probably going back, it was before COVID, I think, and we were shooting video, and this was here in the UK, and the cameras were overheating. I remember it was the hottest day of the year as well, officially that year when we shot it, and I remember where we were as well. So I think, you know, overheating has been a problem, but again, it's how you use it. So if you know how to use your cameras on the right settings, your camera won't necessarily overheat as well. So I think there's definitely a learning curve with all of that as well. So I think that's something that all camera brand manufacturers are going to improve as technology advances with all of that as well. And then, you know, we come on to Leica. What can Leica, what can they improve?
The price.
The price, yeah. Bottom line is, Yeah.
I'm not. I say that obviously it's more of a joke because of how we discussed Leica.
Yeah.
Their stuff is amazing.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you though, the price, you could probably label that on all the camera manufacturers. My EF 2470 back in the day when I bought it was, I think, 1200.
Yeah.
Maybe 1500. I can't remember. It was the L lens 2.8 2470. The RF version, which you bought, is probably a grand dearer, isn't it? Nearly grand and a half dearer.
Yeah.
So prices have gone up quite a bit, I think, since I bought my first DSLR, which was Canon. But yeah, I mean, so price, I mean, things are going to go up in price. Of course they are. I get that. The technology is more. But yeah, that would be nice if things were just a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, and the thing is I think it's only worth buying a Leica. I think if you're really familiar with cameras and you know how to use a camera really well, then I think it's worth buying a Leica, because a lot of them, the whole feel is about the whole manual process and everything. So if you're going to spend that much money, I think you should already really be familiar with using a camera. But it'd be great if Leica did bring out, maybe, like the James Bond camera that they bought out, maybe buy something that's a lot more affordable, that's got that sort of, I don't like to use the word that gimmicky thing, but that sales thing that makes it feel, but then that's their brand.
That's
so,
like saying, I mean, in some respects it is like, I mean, I know I was kind of quite flippant what I was saying about the prices, really. I know it's not going to happen, and I get it. But that's like Ferrari coming out with a budget Ferrari. They're not going to do it. I'd like a Ferrari, but I can't afford one, and that's why people like Ferraris, because they are that sort of area of affluence and all that, and that's what Leica are about as well, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing that I'd like to see camera manufacturers do, actually, Mark, is, and I know you can custom set your buttons. Okay, like on the Sonys, is it? They have the C1 and the C2 button. And so you can custom set everything you want. But I do think that all camera manufacturers should clearly have and they don't all, they should all have that ISO button either on the top or the back of their camera body. It should be there and it should say ISO on it. Yes, you can. Yeah, definitely. Because to me, I use my ISO more than I use anything else. I adjust my ISO all the time.
Okay. I mean, but the R6 has its own wheel.
No, a button or a wheel. Sorry,
right.
should.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, what I mean is it should be clearly adjustable on your menu system, and it should say on there ISO.
Yeah. Okay. No, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
Because there are, and I'm really surprised at this, how a lot of camera manufacturers don't do that. And I think that's the one thing. I think there's a lot of buttons on the back of the camera that, you don't need so much. I think white balance could go into the menu system. I really do. I don't think you need to alter your white balance that quickly. You're always using your ISO, but you're not using a white balance. You use your white balance.
I don't think I've used a camera with a white balance button on the back, to be honest.
Yeah, there is. I'm sure there is, or something. But a lot of cameras do have a white balance button that's there. I'm sure the Nikon, I think the D750, I'm sure on the left-hand side, I think it's got a button there that says white balance.
Fair enough.
But yeah, other than custom setting because a lot of people don't know about custom setting and they don't know how to do it, and they don't do it. People are fearful of using that, of trying to alter what they're doing. But stick an ISO button or a wheel, as Canon do, on the back and label it ISO. I think when it comes to camera design, I think that's my biggest sort of gripe. Because within the photography course that we do, we handle a lot of cameras from other photographers, and they'll pass it over and say, "Oh, look, can you have a look at I can't find my ISO," and I'm looking all over the body for where it says ISO, and it's not there. And it says you can custom set this. I know you can custom set it, but it should be there. As a thing. I think also, just on that, before I finish off, I think the diopter for the viewfinder. Yeah. I think very little is made of the importance of the diopter. I think camera manufacturers
absolutely nothing for me, but
right. Okay, so it makes I will set it to my eyesight. I think every camera manufacturer say, when you buy a new camera, first thing you should do is turn it on, and you should set your diopter, set your camera for your eye, for your eye prescription, as it were. It's like going to the optician.
Yeah.
And I think that's something they should market that a little bit more. They say, I talk to photographers about it and they've got no idea. And then you figure out that when they look through the viewfinder for all these years they've been shooting photos, they've never seen, they don't know what a sharp image actually is because they don't see it sharp through their viewfinder.
Yeah. No, I mean, I if I ever see it, it's a bit blurry. It's always the diopter. I always like put it, but I still got to wear my glasses anyway. So that's why I said the diopter does absolutely nothing for me. But
but you need to set it.
Oh, you do need to set it, without shadow.
And I think that is really important. I rely on it. I know that. Thinking actually, the camera's it didn't look quite sharp, and it could well be the diopter that's moved. It's unlikely. It's just not. I haven't focused it correctly. User error more likely, because it is difficult to adjust the diopter on a lot of cameras. But anyway, there you go. That was just my sort of take on camera manufacturers. What can they do? What improvements do we want to see, or what things could they do? Could they be doing a little bit better?
I mean, I think maybe simplify the menu systems just a little bit. That would be always good. Thank you, Sony. I mean, the Canon ones are okay, but there's a lot of and you can adjust them, but sometimes I just think, well, I don't understand why that bit's next to that bit. Surely that should be there. Why do I have to go through that bit to get to the next bit that I use all the time? The difference between like formatting the card and like the white balance. I mean, there's a whole load of menu systems in between, and I don't understand why. I know you can custom it before people are yelling me at that, and you can put I get that, but why do that in the first place? I just don't get it.
I've done that with my Canon. I've put them in that star setting or whatever it is. Right. So usually what I say, and that also includes time. Because we're forever time syncing our cameras, so I've put that in my favorites as well. So it's really easy to actually get to. Yeah,
quality I think is in that one for me.
Really.
The time. I think also there's a focusing mode I put in there as well. Just the things that I use.
The things that are important to you. That's right. Yeah. So good stuff. Right, guys. It'd be really interesting to know what you guys might think. What do you guys? Yeah, and we're talking about like serious stuff here. We're not talking about we have done episodes about what crazy and wacky things that you'd like. Do you remember the spy lens? We won't go into that. That's an old show. That was rubbish. Spy lens. That's right. Yeah, that's which is quite a gimmicky sort of product, but quite fun. But no, something that's quite serious as well. Something that's doable and that you would actually find usable. That we can get the camera manufacturers to listen and say, because I think they're pretty good.
And before you go for it, they're not going to reduce the price. So
let's not
have a load of comments and saying the price, because
they're too expensive. Yeah, they are what they are price wise.
Yeah, whatever the price was, we'd probably be going, it should be cheaper.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Look for the cashback deals.
I am guilty of that.
Yeah, look for the cashback deals. Go to the shows, the trade shows. That's where you're going to get your best prices from. Mark,
very true.
On that,
I think we need to get around then, because Pete's coming, isn't he? So we should sort that out. Right then. So welcome back. So we've got Peter in from Tech Photogs. He's going to have a chat with us about sort of all the tech stuff that we have questions for. So we got a few questions to ask. Cam, I think you want to start off with this.
I do, yes. Thanks again, Pete, for joining us. This is great having a tech person coming on and trying to explain things in a very basic sort of way, because we can all really sort of get lost with tech, can't we? We love tech, let's be honest, we do love it, but we do get lost with abbreviations and really what's happening when it doesn't need to be that complicated. So Pete's great.
Cam, we kind of get lost in that. Well, not lost, but we kind of get excited about sort of, I'd say, like, not superficial tech, but window dressing tech. Things like mirrorless cameras and we can do this and that and that. This is like, because last time we had Peter on, and do listen to that episode, we were talking about different backup systems like NAS systems and RAID systems and all this. And this is like really deep tech that I have no idea what about. It's the difference between a jazzy keyboard and like the chip behind it. So yeah, it's great to have you on, because as I say, this is stuff that I couldn't explain at all. So
yeah, and I think this is really important for not whether you're a hobbyist or you just take a few photos, or whether you're a working professional who's just started out, or you've been around, established for many years. We all want to sort of be backing up our files and making sure that we're doing the right things. And talking about tech, very quickly, Mark, I just want to make a quick comment here. I'm just going to not sort of go off topic here, but you being an Apple user, it's just come across, isn't it, how Apple have caved in, haven't they? With they're now not going to be using, is it their sort of Thunderbolt dedicated plug-in system, are they? They're going to be going USB-C or something, aren't they?
Yeah, which is probably the right call. I mean, look, all companies have these little things. I mean, I've spoken to, I think I said on the podcast before, Sony used to use the Sony memory stick in all their camcorders and digital cameras, and Peter's rolling his eyes. I know you guys can't see it, but you guys can't see it. But yeah, all companies have had this thing that they do, that they try and this is no different with the Thunderbolt. I mean, the Thunderbolt cable is a very good cable, by the way. I mean, it's very quick with the charging and all that kind of stuff, but it's no good. USB, I mean, I find USB-C a pain in the bum as well, to be honest, but it is the way things are going.
But I wonder whether this is, Apple, getting with it. Anyway, look, let's not go into Apple versus Mac right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Peter, I wanted to sort of get back on topic.
Well, actually, maybe we should. Let's talk about Apple versus. We got a tech guy on here.
Okay.
Hang on.
Right.
So, PCs versus Mac, Peter. Where are you with that?
So, my personal opinion is, it's apples and pears. They are very, very different, but obviously from the same family, right? I would never use my Mac to play video games. My son loves his PC for that. He's 15 and he's just built his new PC, so maybe he's following his footsteps, right? But then again, I used to use a PC for a long period of time, and I found, I mean, and bear in mind, this was, we're talking Windows Vista, Windows 7, starting of Windows 10, and I found I was spending more time doing stuff to this operating system to make it work, scanning for viruses, optimizing the hard drive. I was spending more time doing that than I was getting on with the work, or I'd be constantly interrupted. You need to do Windows updates. They have to be done now, now, just now,
Yeah.
So I moved away from that because I was conscious that it was disrupting me from getting on with the job of being a photographer. I can't pretend that I didn't like the look of Macs, because aesthetically they're beautiful, right?
Yeah. Ergonomically as well, they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reliability is what gets me as well. Now, all computers are fallible. They rely on mechanical and physical parts that just unsustainable. So the reliability for Macs is what gets me. I know that I'm paying more money. That's my choice. You don't buy a Ferrari to get you down to the shops. You buy it because it looks great and you've got a great engine, you've got the heritage.
Yeah.
That being said, there are things that frustrate me with Apple. As a company, they do tend to want to innovate. They were the first company to remove floppy disks from their computers.
Yeah.
From I don't know whether anybody remembers. Remember the bowl, the iMacs with the bowl with the swivel?
Yeah, I remember those.
Remember those? Those Power Macs.
Yeah,
they were the first people, and people were like, "You're nuts! Nobody's gonna use CDs." And then CDs went, and they're like, "Well, where do we put our CDs?"
Yeah.
Now, who's using a CD, really? You might use Blu-rays, but to watch movies, but nobody's storing the data.
No.
Right? So they are innovative in a lot of ways. They were the first person to bring with the lightning cable. That's the cable
Thunderbolt.
Yeah,
Lightning, yeah.
The Lightning, the Thunderbolt's the other one.
Thunderbolt's the other one. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I was getting
The
confused.
Lightning cable is the first cable really to have both sides. You could switch it around to both sides for a mobile device. It wasn't until USB-C came in then that you could use the cable both ways, right? So innovation, I think, is a good thing because it pushes everybody forward, and Apple's still being a bit defiant. Their USB-C cable is a proprietary USB-C, so it bases on their technology, but you can also pay now to get a faster USB-C cable with the iPhone 15, which has just recently been received. But they do look at research and development. A typical example would be, and just quickly because I know we're going to go and talk about the other things. When you look at the 2021 MacBook Pros, from the 29 MacBook Pros, they removed everything. Everything was USB-C. People were outraged because MagSafe had disappeared. And then in the next model, the 16-inch MacBook Pros, the card reader's back in the side. The HDMI is back. So they do listen to people, although it can take a couple of generations of years to do it. But and then PCs do have their place. It's just a personal choice for me to focus on the work, not on the tech, really.
Yeah.
It should be invisible to the work.
I mean, I was using, I started off with PC for many years, then moved to Mac, and then went back to PC. And I think the reason for that was because our workflow, our type of work rather, was changing. We were really a photography only company, and then going back to 2015, we then went to we introduced video, and video has become a huge part of what we do. We probably now do more video than we do photography. But then a few years ago, I think going back now to 2017, we started introducing drones as well. So, and what we were finding was all this additional video work that we had. Obviously files were much bigger. Suddenly we went from photography files to using raw video files, as such. So, we were using it's just gone out of my mind now, the Sony RAW system for video files. It'll come to me. Anyway, so our file size was suddenly much, much bigger. And so talking to the guy that always helped us put our PCs and our Macs together and everything and link everything up, he was saying that, look, if you go down the PC route, everything is, it does bring costs down, but also everything is more customizable. You can add more memory, you can change things and you can upgrade the computers as you move along. So every 2 or 3 years, we can, as long as we've got a good size case for our desktops, we could upgrade and change and bring, and that's what we've actually been doing all these years now. We have a PC sort of say after a few years, we sort of upgrade that PC by bringing in new components, new graphics cards, and so we've found that to be a better option than having gone with Mac, and that's why we actually did that.
Yeah.
And I know that people get precious over, I've got a Mac, I've got a PC, or, especially Mac users can get very precious.
PC users have a chip on their shoulder.
No, let's be honest, right? Let's be honest, right?
It's an Intel chip.
Let's be honest, right?
I like it. That's a real tech joke there.
Let's be honest, Mac. Yeah, look, I've been a Mac user, so I've been one of those people. It was Mac all the way, everything. Oh no, it's not Mac knocks the spots off everything. Okay, Mac, it does in many ways because you obviously don't have the virus issues, as you do with PC. You don't have those sort of issues. They do. I think. Well, I say they do look cooler. I think PCs have really caught up in their style now and everything. Of that, and cost is a huge consideration. I think a lot of people want to get a Mac because I've got a Mac. I mean,
that is the biggest downside of the Macs is the cost. There's absolutely no doubt about it. You are paying a lot more for a Mac, and that can put people off. But
I think they last longer. I think the shelf life of a Mac, I do believe is considerably longer.
Absolutely.
And so then when you weigh up cost from there, the initial outlay of a Mac might be a hell of a lot more than a PC. But in actual fact, if you weigh it up with the shelf life that you've had from a Mac compared to that same PC, the cost is probably not that different actually.
They tend to be more cost effective in some ways because my daughter has a 2010 iMac in the other room. She only uses it now for browsing the web, but that's still working perfectly. You know, it's
Mm.
running a very old operating system. She can't do any of the newer things, but that still works, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of photographers, they they will say, oh no, it's much quicker to do editing on a Mac, videographers and whatever. But if we specifically said we're just talking about photographers and videographers, let's say we took a Mac, let's say we took a top end Mac and we built a PC to the same spec of that Mac, because you can do. At the end of the day, what's going to be the better option? You've got like for like here. What's going to be the better option? I think this is the question that most people would want to know, because yes, if I go and buy a PC, the spec may not be as good as the Mac, or the PC that I've got is a better spec than the Mac. So I know one's going to be better than the other. But let's say that they have both got the same spec. What's going to be the better option?
Well, then it comes down to your personal preference, your operating systems. Okay. So how a Mac uses hardware and how Windows uses hardware is very different because of the operating system. So, for instance, you look at, without going too technical, but the way that the drives kind of are formatted. If you use a Mac system, you can't use the hard drives if it's formatted for Mac on a PC, and you can't use a PC for a Mac without proprietary programs. You can format hard drives so that they will work on both, but it's not as efficient.
Yeah.
So it does come down if price isn't an option and you're ordering computers of comparable specification side by side, it comes down to the experience. It's all about the UX, as my son calls it. It's the UX, all about the user experience. And I think that's something that really does need to be taken into consideration. The other thing as well, just to think about, is that so every couple of years, you can upgrade your PC, maybe put hard drives in it, and you're making it last longer. For a Mac, you can't really do that. But what you've got to think about as well is that the new programs that come out and the new operating systems that come out are always built with the newest architecture in mind. So when my Mac here, so I've got a 2019 i9 64 gig of RAM iMac 27-inch here. And I lease my Macs. There's no surprise about it, because after the lease ends, I get to keep it for £1, and I'll go and lease another one. But what that does is it moves the architecture upwards, so that rather than just using older architecture, think of it being like an older engine and just add in, more hard drive space. I'm still only using architecture that's currently now 4 years old, So when I renew that Mac, I'm getting the latest processors that have the latest instructions on it. So maybe they can do things quicker, and it's not necessarily about having more hard drive space. That's not the only consideration for me. It's about changing the kind of internal components within the Mac. Now, you can do that with a PC, but then is that even then the same PC? Because you might keep the case on the outside and change the motherboard, which is the bit that everything plugs into, and the processor, which is the brain, and then you might add extra RAM in there that's faster. Well, it's like Trigger's broom. It's not the same. It's not,
What an analogy.
Yeah, it's like Trigger's broom. It's not. How the heck is it even the same PC?
Same brute. Yeah.
But that's the point, right? So that's the thing Mac forces you to do. But for me, it's a good thing, because it forces me then, when I go and, like, I'll sell the old Mac or I'll give it to my kids or what have you, it forces me then to have the next level of architecture. And an example would be the Mac recently introduced, I say recently, in the last couple of years, have introduced their own processors, the M1 range, M2 range. And they did it before with Motorola, before Intel became the preferred supplier of choice for their processors. But these new processors are more power efficient. They are, they've got more cores, which allow you to do more things at the same time, and they're just generally better than what Intel was producing at the last part. Because Apple have gone, well, what do we want out of a processor? What should it do? We want to give people more battery life. How do we achieve that? So them designing it, Apple spend more on research and development than the US government spend on defense.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's an incredible stat.
$1 trillion company.
Woo.
$1 trillion company. So when you buy a Mac, you're not just paying for the aesthetics, you're paying for the 2 years of research and development by thousands and thousands of staff, constantly pushing the edge on not only what is available, but what they can do. How do they take something that is already good and make it better, So
I'm guessing, so just to say, there's also probably a plus point for having it all built by one company.
Fewer things go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had those issues with PC with certain parts being, compatible and not being so compatible. Luckily, the guy that does it for me, does know his stuff, but he has sort of said to me certain things aren't as compatible. So you have to know somebody who knows that. You have to be using somebody who does their stuff.
PCs tend to PC users tend to have more understanding and more technical knowledge because they'll know what components they want to go inside the unit. Whereas Mac units just want to get on with perhaps the job that they're doing. You throw a Mac down and use that, and you can just get on. You haven't got to worry whether your hard drive needs to be optimized or this,
It's
that, the other.
We've sort of gone, well, I mean, today's episode wasn't supposed to be what we're talking about. We were coming on to, so we've changed it. So we'll continue with it.
Yeah, because it's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump on to the next question. But before I do, Mark, I've mentioned this so many times, haven't I? And we're going to go back to Mac and Apple and all of that. I mean, you've got to hand it to Mac, haven't you? That, their marketing is so good. They make their hardware look really sexy, really current. People want a Mac because they do look great. They've always had that. Now I think their laptops, I don't think they look as good as some of, I've got an Asus Pro Art laptop, and I think that its look and its feel knocks the spots off any Mac that I've seen, and the whole feel and everything. So I think they've caught up. No, but I think but I think Mac have led the way. Okay. But what I was going to say, Matt and Mark, we've spoken about this many times, is the way they market things. I mean, do you remember? And they've done it recently because they bought a range of they changed their screens, don't they, to different color options, didn't they? And do you remember when they did? Do you remember when they brought out their iPhone going back a few years ago? They had different colors, didn't they?
Yeah.
And their marketing was like, and we've introduced color. It was like they'd invented color.
Yeah.
I mean, I think someone should probably mention
have it in green.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys. If you remember the old Nokias with the changeable front case part. I mean, this is not a new concept. Apple, come on.
It's just a new Apple concept.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Well, the new iPhone 15 Pro now comes in titanium.
All right.
It's actually made with titanium.
I mean, that's smooth, isn't it?
More energy efficient, 100% recyclable, aluminium. Other companies have been doing that for a while, but again, Apple like to keep that edge. They like to keep that edge.
Now, I think the next question is also going to be relevant to a lot of people, because I think particularly after what happened with COVID, with a lot of people remote working and everything, there's a thing about laptop versus desktop. And I know a lot of people are still undecided about this. I think the immediate thing is desktop It's going to allow me to do things much quicker, much faster. And I know for us as a business, apart from now one PC, we've actually got rid of all of our PCs, and we've all gone laptops since COVID, because we were working, from home, and as we came out of COVID, we're now, I mean, I'm working at home a lot more than I am going into the office now. As a business, we have, and I want to talk about this on a different pod, we've gone completely, or we are in the process of going completely paperless. And two of us are in the process of doing that. And by the end of the year, by the end of the year, we want to be a completely paperless company. We want to get rid of everything that we have, apart from our wedding side of the business, where we have wedding albums.
Good luck with that.
Apart from weddings and wedding albums, we don't want to have any sort of paper trails now of paper of anything now. And we're actually really achieving that. And really COVID has been that was a sort of seed that started all of that. But you now go into, and I laugh about this, you go into Starbucks, you go into Costa, you see all these people sitting with their laptops, working away, tapping away and everything. Yeah. And when it comes to that laptop versus desktop, Peter, where do you lie with that, as far as what's if you bought a like for like, let's just say the laptop is the same spec as your desktop, is a laptop a hands down winner because it's going to give you more portability, or is it not, or is the desktop going to have a far longer shelf life?
For me, it's always looking about what's going to suit your working environment. Okay, you can do just as well with a laptop and a dock and a screen as you can do with a desktop, an iMac. For the simple reason is that you plug your keyboard, your mouse, or what have you, or Bluetooth into your dock. You got one cable. USB-C allows transfer of data and video and power, for PCs. So you can plug one cable in, and instantly your screens are going to connect. Your internet is going to connect via maybe an Ethernet cable. Your keyboard and mouse, if they're not using Bluetooth already, are using keyboard and mouse, they're going to connect. So, but having the ability to pick that up, walk out to the house and edit at a wedding, 10 shots for the bride and groom to see, that's invaluable. That's invaluable. And it used to be years ago that you'd find that desktop devices would be more powerful, would offer a better option, but that's not the case now. Especially, I mean, I say, we joke about Apple and PC, but Apple are using the same processors in the desktop devices as they're using in their mobile devices. And with kind of all of these small Mac Mini studios and the Mac Studios that you can physically pick up and put into a bag anyway. It makes for we live in a mobile world, and people need to work where they are at. Going back to an office, going here, there, working in Starbucks, kind of. It has to be
I mean, our work.
Right?
Do you? Sorry, just a quick question. Sorry, that my voice went really weird there. Beg your pardon. Do you miss the screen size though? Because that's the one thing because I bought a MacBook Pro quite recently. It's got the M2 processor and all that. It's brilliant. It's really fast. I think my desktop is fast, but I bought that. That was a 2017 model. It's still, still kicking a fair amount of bottom. I mean, the one thing I don't like when using the laptop is the size of the screen. I mean, I don't know if that has any impact on how you think about this. And
well, here's your advantage. Okay, you can buy yourself a monitor and then plug that in. And
but taking that into Starbucks is going to be
that's
an issue,
that's
right?
very true. I mean, look, certain environments, as a photographer as well, right? You have to think about when you're calibrating your screens for color, you're calibrating them in a specific environment. So in here, I've got a white ceiling, You know,
Yeah.
I've got light grey walls. When I calibrate my screen, it takes into consideration. That's my dogs in the
Sorry.
background. Somebody's just walked past the window, so my apologies there.
No worries.
You when you take that into consideration as well, right? Going into Starbucks where you've got all these different colors on the wall, light from the
Yeah.
window, you know, and Apple screens as well.
They're not the best for calibration, are
Not
they?
the
Yeah. Yeah.
greatest.
I don't
Yeah.
never understood that.
Yeah.
Do you think? Yeah. Oh, I was going to say that with the, yes, I use twin screen when I'm sitting here at the office and I've got twin screen. In fact, I've just not plugged my second screen in
Yeah.
at the moment. But yeah, I'll use twin screen. And my the laptop that I've got, the main laptop that I use now, is a 17-inch screen. So I
Yeah.
don't. So the size of the screen doesn't really bother me so much now, Mark. I think I've just got
Maybe
used.
just gotten used to it.
I've just got
Because I mean,
used to it.
I'm looking at you guys on a 27-inch screen.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
there is a big difference, I think, when you're, especially if you're doing certain types of editing. I mean, I mean, you know, been doing a lot of my composites and stuff. A bigger screen is incredibly handy. So as much as that, but so for me, I mean, I think when it comes to laptop versus desktop, I don't think there is a winner there. For me, I use both. For exactly all the reasons that we just spoke about. So the mobile, you know, you need to be mobile, as Peter was saying. Of course you do. You know, we've all been editing at a wedding. You know, when you got that 2-hour lull during dinner or whatever it is. You know, I remember when we were doing one with one of your weddings, Cam. You know, I was working on one thing and you were working on another. You know?
That's right. Yeah. Now you know the thing with also with the screens is getting used to it. I think also, and I think it could be a bit gimmicky, but when I was looking at my laptop, the Asus laptop that I've got, Asus do now a twin screen laptop where they've got a screen that sits at the top of the keyboard that runs the length of the keyboard, and it tilts up just a little bit. So they're trying to introduce this twin screen thing as well within laptops as well. So I think technology is going to move those things sort of much, you know, it's going to move things forward. I think we're going to see real innovation with that. And I think, you know, people will have a built-in twin screen into their laptops. Asus have done it. I tried it. Again, I was going to say I didn't like it, but I think you just have to get used to it. Once you've got used to it and you know what you're doing and everything. But I think for me, when I talk about, you know, the reason why I asked that question was because I think my work has changed since COVID. You know, at COVID, we had to work from home. And I had a laptop before COVID anyway, but I was using my laptop probably 40% of the time. And my desktop PC was using sort of more. It was using that sort of 60% of the time. And obviously COVID basically made me take my laptop home. And then what I did was we had 4 PCs at the office, and I had 3 PCs, and I just got rid of them. I just thought no one's using these PCs now. It's been 18 months since we really turned those PCs on, and I did turn them on, took off what I needed to do.
Did
and
the Windows updates?
Yeah.
Massive list.
I took them to the local sort of computer. I'm really lucky. We've got a really good computer shop down the road from us. So I took them in there and I said, what can you give me, you know, for these PCs? And I think for those 3 PCs, I think I got in total probably about 600 quid. Okay. You know, because they were you know, they were good PCs. They had a really good spec, but it'd been 18 months since we'd used them. They just sat there and I thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to make a thing here. And it was that thing of, do I get rid of these PCs? Do I keep them? Oh God, no, it doesn't seem right because I bought them for X amount.
But you still kept one desktop though, didn't you? I mean, there's still a desktop there.
We've got one desktop, but I want to get rid of that eventually. That's going to go. We're just leaning towards that. That's 600 quid. I just to put towards you know, another laptop. And I've not missed those PCs at all. You know,
it wasn't an Apple laptop though, was it? 600 quid.
and
600 quid.
Yeah, and I didn't just
get you an Apple keyboard and mouse, wouldn't it?
I know.
And what I didn't do was I didn't just disconnect those desktops and just pile them up and they're still sitting there in the room unused. I just got rid of them. And the computer shop that I went to, I deleted everything. They told me how to delete everything. Then they said they do another delete to make sure. And I've known them for years, so I totally trust them, because people say I'm not handing over this PC because God only knows what's on the drive. I may never get rid of all of it, you know. But I sort of did that, and it was the best thing that I did. But work has now led me to work, you know, taking my laptop wherever I go. And I know this sounds obvious because people say that's what laptops are for, but it does change things. But one thing that you've got to be careful of is when you have a laptop, is that you don't is to stop yourself from working even longer hours, because you think, I've got my laptop, I'll just turn my laptop on, it's late at night, I'll get on with a bit of work. There's times when you have to do that, but you also have to discipline yourself, and I think that can be the downside of having a laptop as well. You might find it, you tend to work longer hours because you're always going onto your laptop. But I've sat in my car and hotspotted, gone online and worked if I'm waiting for something. We were out filming on a construction site last week, and we had a 2-hour wait where they were waiting for this piping to come, that we needed to be filming going into a ground. That's all the job was. But what happened was that I had 2.5 hours of doing nothing at all, sitting waiting. That's potentially what could have happened. I sat in my car, hotspotted from my phone, was able to get online access, and was able to send emails, keep up to date with all of that. It was great, so for me, laptop,
it's that is great, and I understand why it's, but it's you can't escape work anymore, can you? That's the downside, is it? You're on holiday, take your laptop, you can still answer emails, you can hotspot your phone. It's just more access to work, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if you're working for yourself, if you're self-employed,
it's both a good and a bad thing, I guess.
I get it.
That's right. Yeah,
I think we've all decided laptops are the way to go, but with a good screen, if you're a photographer, you need to be considering these kind of matte screens. BenQ do a SW271C. I'm not affiliated to them or anything, but and their screen, it's like you're looking at your photographs on a print. And that's it's just superb.
And I just want to finish up on that, because I had the same situation with somebody, in fact, last year, who bought a laptop, and he was saying that he'd bought his I can't remember how much I spent on mine. It's probably near 2,000 on the laptop the main laptop that I use. He went and bought a laptop, a Windows laptop, and I think he spent about £500 on it. And he said, look, the specs aren't that different, but they are hugely different. And when you look at the screen, with his screen, you move your left head to the left or to the right, and the image, you can't see the image on the screen, all of those things. So a huge part, and I think a lot of people don't think about this, is that when they buy a laptop, a huge part of what they're paying for is screen quality as well. And don't look at the spec. Don't just look at the spec. Look at the actual screen that you've got and how it performs, because at least half of that, the value of the laptop, is going to be in your screen. And that's what Macs were known for, really, weren't they? Initially, it was a screen quality that Mac really set themselves apart. And their
screen quality is still, I think, I don't know, would you say it's one of the best, Peter? I don't know. My only complaint is you can't really calibrate them.
Well, it's very bright, and there's the brightness is fantastic. The color gamut, the amount of colors that it can show is fantastic. It's just the glossy screens for me, in the wrong light, you're looking at your reflection. And they've started to do it now. You can now buy the studio display with a matte screen, but that's extra, because
well, when I bought my laptop, I remember when I bought my other one, which was back in 2008. That's how long the laptop, these laptops last. I had the option of going for a matte screen or the glossy screen, and I went for the matte screen. And I don't think there was a price difference then. Now, when I bought this one, they didn't do it anymore. They just didn't do the matte screen, and I was thinking, I thought, why?
There is a trick. Okay. There is a trick for this. You can go online and you can buy screen protectors that have a matte finish.
Ah, yes.
And I tell you, protects your screen.
Yeah.
You can get it for the specific model, and it looks better as well.
I might have to look out for that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because when you're calibrating your screen anyway, which we'd encourage photographers to do, you're calibrating it with the screen display on. So if those colors aren't as bright coming through, it takes that into consideration.
Yeah.
Calibrate, put the screen thing protector on, look for a matte one. You can get them on eBay for about 25 quid.
That's not much.
I don't know any specific makes or models, but there's one German company on there that just do amazing screen, screen glare. Reduce the screen glare, and when you calibrate afterwards, it takes into consideration the brightness, and I literally see no difference apart from there's no glare.
Yeah, very good, very good. Cool, right then, guys. Well, yeah, that went a bit off topic, but actually,
It went very
I
off
thought that was
topic.
yeah, it was a great conversation nonetheless, because it's a conversation we have all the time, isn't it? Macs versus PCs,
Yeah, that's right.
and yeah, no, it's a good one. So yeah, thanks again for dropping by, Peter. It was just great sharing a pint and having a yarn,
No
and
problem.
yeah,
We should go to the bar and get a bite.
yes, let's do that. Let's do a megabyte.
Yay.
So Cam, before we do that though, Cam, I think you want to talk through the socials.
I do, yes, guys. Please remember that if you like listening to the podcast, please subscribe to us, and you can listen to us on the normal sort of links, Spotify, Apple, all of those main podcast outlets. Please leave us those 5-star reviews. Remember the Patreon, remember YouTube. We're on all of those channels, and we're here to help you guys, to give you guys information. And if whether you're a hobbyist or whether you're a professional photographer, we're hoping that you find that the information that we give you really useful. So, guys, thank you very much, and keep on listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.